We just got a document dropped in front of our offices, and it says trial attorneys taking money from California homeowners in a settlement deal. So you've put the trial attorneys squarely in your sight. So I have a question to Mr. Diaz. What is your billable rate?
What's my billable rate?
What's your billable rate?
It's a rate that I charge clients for my work.
I certainly get that. Why don't I just guess that your billable rate is maybe $7.50 an hour? Okay? I'll just guess because that is, for Jones Day attorneys, that's a pretty average rate for someone of your background and your experience. So if we're talking about a lawsuit that lasted 18 years, and let's assume 2 or 3 years of pre-litigation expenses, 20 years of legal work, all right? So if I just assume your billable rate, $20 million, which is, let's say, a third of the settlement of NL, we're talking about $1 million worth of legal expenses a year. At your billable rate, that's about 1,300 hours. And as you know, 1,300 hours is roughly, say, 3/4 of the time of one attorney. You see where I'm going with this? So the attorneys that have worked on this case for 20 years, 10 public law offices plus private counsel are about to be reimbursed the value of one attorney in your office. Now, let me ask you, how many attorneys have worked on this case over the past 20 years from your law firm?
I don't have that.
Of course you can't tell me that. You understand my point here. My point here is this team sitting in front of me, the lobbyists, the consultants, are trying to talk about, and let's throw out all the words that you've used today, redlining, slumlords, sex offense registry, invoking President Obama, and, quote, trial attorneys. And you want to suggest that what an associate in your law firm makes, if you put one full-time associate for 20 years, that is equivalent to what all of the attorneys who have been fighting your company, Sherwin-Williams, and ConAgra and NL Industries for 20 years for poisoning our children, you want to put that in contention as an issue that we should be discussing here, right?
So my point was, with due respect, Assemblymember, is that the court had determined that none of the money from the decision could go to the trial lawyers. That was not my decision. That was the court's decision.
So I appreciate it, but you keep, everyone is, from the proponents, keep putting the so-called trial attorneys into this issue, and I just want to suggest that's not flying too well with those of us that know a little bit about the law and how much law costs.
Yes, and my point was simply not to denigrate the trial lawyers, but to use the fact...
It wasn't to denigrate the trial lawyers, really?
The court had determined that they could not be paid out of the money awarded by the court. And so a settlement, the private settlement, allowed money to come from one of the parties to go to pay the attorneys. That's simply the point.
I would just like to suggest to colleagues, because we have a lot of non-lawyer colleagues on our legislature, that the way this works, as you know, is when you have a large multi-billion-dollar corporation, they get to pay the best lawyers in the country, and I would include Mr. Diaz in that. You pay your billable hour. You get paid for every hour that you work on this, for every hour you've worked on this for 20 years, for every hour that multiple law firms have worked on this, defending this case against public law firm offices around the state of California who have not been paid for 20 years. And the settlement, from what I understand, is equivalent to what maybe a senior associate who's not even a partner at Jones Day has made. And you have put that in contention. I just want to point this out. It strikes me as a little unfair, particularly since you have dropped this flyer to every legislator in this building within the last 2 hours. Just wanted to point that out to colleagues.